Good evening, and welcome to this evening's Kristallnacht Jewish Film Festival event. My name is Jared Shore, and along with my co-president, Jordan Balaban, we bring greetings on behalf of Calgary Jewish Federation. Tonight, we will share in the amazing story of Wilfred Israel, a German Jewish businessman whose role in saving his fellow Jews, and in particular the Kindertransport, has made him truly one of both our greatest heroes as well as a beacon of humanity in one of history's darkest moments. The story of Wilfred Israel is as relevant today as it's ever been.
Year after year, we are faced with troubling polls and statistics revealing a steady decline of Holocaust awareness and education. How can this be in a time when our social media platforms are so focused on anti-suppression and anti-racism? The latest study commissioned by the Conference on Jewish Material Claims Against Germany found a shocking number of American young adults lack a basic understanding of the Holocaust. According to the survey of American millennials and Gen Z, ages 18 to 39, 63% do not know that 6 million Jews were exterminated by Nazis, and 36% thought the number was 2 million or fewer. Nearly a quarter of those surveyed say they believe the Holocaust was a myth, had been exaggerated, or simply weren't sure.
While we as a Jewish community vow to never forget, already the memory of Wilfred Israel has faded. How can we turn our words of never forget into action? We are witnessing a global escalating rise in the oldest, most enduring, most toxic, and most lethal of hatreds, anti-Semitism. As our world around us changes at a speed we never saw coming, and anti-Semitism dares rear its head once again, we must heed the words of German dissident Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who stated, "Not to speak is to speak, and not to act is to act. It is the silence of indifference and the inaction of neglect." Jewish Calgary, we must speak and we must act. The importance of honoring the memories of 6 million, the imperative to remember Wilfred Israel and the many like him who acted and spoke, to hear and share the words of the survivors in our Calgary Jewish community and beyond. This is the essence of Never Forget.
This year is the 75th year anniversary of the liberation of the worst extermination camp of the 20th century, the death camp Auschwitz, of which 3 of my grandparents were survivors. 1.3 million people were deported to Auschwitz, of which 1.1 million of them were Jews. However, anti-Semitism did not die in Auschwitz. Anti-Semitism remains today the bloodied canary in the mineshaft of global evil. As the late Elie Wiesel said, while it begins with the Jews, it doesn't end with the Jews. Anti-Semitism erodes our humanity, and it is a battle that cannot be won by Jews alone. It demands the mobilization of our collective communities to take action, as is the same for all of our current human rights issues. This fight then brings life to the words, "Never forget."
Calgary Jewish Federation continues to work with government, educators, administrators, and curriculum advisors to ensure both policy and education reflect these important words. We thank Calgary Jewish Film Fest, Harvey and your committee, and of course, our volunteer chairs of Federation's Holocaust Education and Human Rights Committee, Dahlia Libin and Marnie Bonder, for their partnership on this occasion and tremendous work for our community.
On Wednesday, November 9, 1938, the Nazi SS forces, with the help of German civilians, unleashed a massacre against Jews in Germany. For 2 nights, mobs of people, both Nazi and ordinary citizens, rioted. They dragged Torah scrolls through the streets, torched over 1,000 synagogues, and vandalized Jewish homes, businesses, and cemeteries. They murdered nearly 100 Jewish people. During those 2 nights, as many as 30,000 Jewish men were arrested and deported to concentration camps, and the police were instructed not to intervene.
What occurred on those nights in November marked a warning sign for all that was yet to come. This was the first time that the hateful, anti-Jewish rhetoric of the Nazi Party was elevated beyond just words. The atrocities of what took place were reported in international media, including the New York Times and Time magazine. It described how the civilized world was revolted by the devastation of a defenseless people. And yet, although the world knew about it, they did nothing to stop what was already unfolding for European Jewry. Tonight marks the 82nd anniversary of this night.
The impact of Kristallnacht is still seen today in the form of neo-Nazi and white supremacist marches, provocations, hate crimes, and Holocaust denial.
Most importantly, when we look back at history, we recognize that it was a lost opportunity for people of goodwill to join together in serious condemnation against the Nazis. Instead, the world's relatively mild response surprised Hitler and empowered him to proceed with his plan to conquer Europe.
Tonight, we invite you to light a candle. We cannot change the past, but we can influence the future. Tonight, by lighting a candle in a window, we make a public statement that we are against faceless hatred, prejudice, bigotry, injustice, and terrorism. Tonight, we light a candle in memory of all the victims of the Shoah. Will our candles avert war? We can only hope that the light of our candles will send a message that Earth may be small, but is large enough for all to live in peace and harmony, if only we will it enough.
We light this candle in memory of the Jews who were killed on the day of Kristallnacht, the dark foreshadowing of the millions who would come after. During Kristallnacht, mobs of Nazis roamed the streets, attacking Jews in their houses and forcing those they encountered to perform acts of public humiliation. Police records of the period document a high number of rapes and suicides in the aftermath of the violence.
We light this candle in memory of the 30,000 Jewish men who were arrested on Kristallnacht. The arrested men were paraded through the streets and into synagogues. Inside the synagogues, they were forced to recite anti-Semitic writings and passages from Hitler's Mein Kampf. Then the synagogues were set on fire, and the men were deported to death camps, where most of them died as a result of the brutal treatment they endured.
We light this candle in memory of the Fassenenstrasse Synagogue. One of the 267 synagogues set aflame during Kristallnacht. This synagogue was the largest in Berlin, with seating for 1,700 worshippers, and was totally destroyed during Kristallnacht. Under the direct orders of Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi minister of propaganda, its Torah scrolls were desecrated and burnt. Goebbels calmly watched as the synagogue burned.
We light this candle in memory of the 7,500 Jewish shops looted, vandalized, and destroyed during Kristallnacht. As an additional indignity to propel the Nazi propaganda machine, the owners were accused of having set the fires themselves.
The German government made immediate pronouncement that the Jews themselves were to blame for the pogrom and imposed a punitive fine of the equivalent of $400 million on the German Jewish community.
We light this candle in memory of the 6 million Jews, including 1 million Jewish children who perished in the Holocaust. We light in memory of the Jewish communities that are no more, of the Jewish learning and culture that are no more. We mourn the loss of Jewish lives whose potential achievements the world will never know, and their children and grandchildren who never were.
We light this candle in memory of my father
and grandfather, Ralph Lewin.
On the night of Kristallnacht, the synagogue in which he had just celebrated his bar mitzvah was totally destroyed.
We light this candle in memory of my grandfather, who survived Buchenwald, and all the families whose lives were forever shattered.
We invite you to join us for a unique screening of the film, Essential Link, the story of Wilfred Israel, followed by a Zoom meet and greet with the Israeli director Yonatan Nir.